What would you do if the most dangerous man in the Caribbean chose you to be his wife, but he hadn't spoken a single word in 20 years? No one knew why Kang Jae-won went silent. Some said he was cursed. Others whispered about a tragedy so brutal it stole his voice forever. For 2 decades, he ruled Trinidad's underworld without uttering a sound, until Jennifer, a broke, loud-mouthed event planner, accidentally dumped an entire tray of food on his $15,000 suit. She should have been killed for that disrespect. Instead, he made her an offer that would change everything, become his wife, and he'd give her $5 million. She said yes. Big mistake. Because Jennifer's about to discover that some silences hide deadly secrets, and making a monster fall in love might cost her everything. If you love intense mafia romance with unforgettable characters, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications because this story will have you on the edge of your seat. Drop a comment telling me if you'd marry a man who couldn't speak, and let's get into this wild ride. Jennifer Baptiste had exactly $3.47 to her name when she made the worst decision of her life. She accepted a catering job at the Eclipse, the most exclusive nightclub in Port of Spain, Trinidad, a place where regular people didn't go unless they had a death wish or connections to people who issued death wishes. The Eclipse wasn't just a club. It was the headquarters of the Kang Corporation, a legitimate business empire on the surface, but everyone knew it was a front for the Korean-run criminal syndicate that controlled half the Caribbean's underground economy. Jennifer didn't care about any of that. She cared about the $5,000 they were offering for one night's work, enough to pay her grandmother's medical bills and keep the electricity on for 3 months. At 26 years old, with a business degree she couldn't use because nobody wanted to hire a woman who spoke her mind too loudly, she'd learned that sometimes survival meant dancing with the devil. The Eclipse was everything she expected: dark, expensive, and filled with dangerous-looking people in suits that cost more than her entire wardrobe. Jennifer wore her best black dress, tied her locks into a high bun, and told herself to keep her head down and her mouth shut for once in her life. That plan lasted exactly 14 minutes. She was carrying a tray of fancy appetizers, things with names she couldn't pronounce, when she backed into something solid. The tray tilted. Time slowed down. She watched in horror as 12 perfectly arranged hors d'oeuvres flew through the air in a perfect arc toward a man sitting alone in the VIP section, a section she'd been specifically told to avoid. The food landed on his lap. On his clearly expensive black suit. On what she would later learn was a custom-made Italian shirt worth more than a used car. The entire club went silent. Not the normal kind of quiet, but the kind of silence that happens right before someone gets killed in a movie. Every single person turned to look at her, and the expressions on their faces ranged from shock to pity to the kind of fear you see in horror films. "Oh my God, I am so sorry." Jennifer grabbed napkins and did the absolute worst thing possible. She started wiping at the man's lap, talking a mile a minute like she always did when she was nervous. "I didn't see you there, I was walking backwards, which I know is stupid, but there were so many people and I'm so sorry. This is my first time here and I really need this job, and please don't get me fired because my grandmother needs her medications and the landlord is already threatening to." She looked up. And forgot how to breathe. The man was beautiful in a terrifying way. Sharp jawline, pale skin that contrasted dramatically with his all-black attire, dark eyes that seemed to look straight through her soul. He was probably in his early 30s, with perfectly styled black hair and an expression so cold she felt frost forming on her skin. But what struck her most was the absolute stillness of him. He didn't move. Didn't speak. Didn't even seem to breathe. He just stared at her with an intensity that made her knees weak. "Sir, I'm really sorry, I'll pay for the cleaning, or the suit. I mean, I can't actually afford to pay for the suit because it probably costs like a year of my salary, but I'll make payments or..." She was still talking, still wiping, until a hand grabbed her wrist hard enough to bruise. A man who looked like he ate steroids for breakfast pulled her away. "Do you have any idea what you just did?" "I spilled food on someone. I said I was sorry." "That's Kang Jae-won." The man said the name like it should mean something. When Jennifer just blinked at him, he looked at her like she was the dumbest person alive. The Kang Jae-won. Owner of this club. Head of the Kang Corporation. Oh. Oh no. Jennifer looked back at the silent man, who was now standing. He was tall, probably 6 feet, and he moved with the grace of a predator. He pulled out a white handkerchief, wiped his hands slowly, and then did something that made her blood run cold. He looked directly at her and pulled out his phone, typing something. A second later, the man gripping her wrist's phone buzzed. He looked at it and his face went pale. "Boss says to bring her to his office." "Listen, I really am sorry, but I should probably just go." Jennifer started backing away. That wasn't a request. 5 minutes later, Jennifer found herself in the most luxurious office she'd ever seen, all dark wood and leather, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Kang Jae-won sat behind a massive desk, perfectly still, watching her like a hawk watches a mouse. She couldn't help herself. When she was nervous, she talked. So, nice office. Very dark and intimidating, really sets the mood. Is that a real Monet? It's probably fake, right? Nobody keeps real Monets in a nightclub office. Although you seem like the kind of person who would. You seem like you do whatever you want. Not that I'm saying you're a criminal. I'm sure you're very legitimate. The Kong Corporation probably does lots of legal things. Do you speak English? You haven't said anything. Oh God, do you only speak Korean? I don't speak Korean. I barely passed Spanish in school. Jae-won did nothing. Just watched her with those unreadable dark eyes. Then he picked up a tablet and typed something, turning it to face her. You damaged a $15,000 suit. How do you plan to compensate me? Jennifer's eyes went wide. 15,000? For a suit? That's insane. That's criminal. I mean, not that you're a criminal, but whoever sold you that suit should be arrested for robbery. He almost smiled. She could swear she saw the corner of his mouth twitch for a fraction of a second. He typed again. You're either very brave or very stupid to speak to me this way. Definitely the second one, Jennifer admitted. Look, Mr. Kong, I don't have $15,000. I don't have $1,500. I have $3.47 and a grandmother who needs insulin. If you want to kill me or whatever it is you do to people who disrespect you, fine, but can you wait until after I get paid for tonight so I can at least leave something for my grandmother? This time he definitely almost smiled. He studied her for a long moment, then typed something on his phone. Immediately, the office door opened and a woman in an expensive suit walked in, giving Jennifer a look that could freeze fire. Yes, boss, the woman asked. Jae-won showed her his phone. The woman's eyes went wide. Sir, are you sure? He nodded once, firmly. The woman turned to Jennifer with barely concealed disgust. Mr. Kong has a proposition for you. He needs a wife. Jennifer laughed. Then she realized no one else was laughing. Wait, you're serious? Mr. Kang's business interests require him to appear stable and settled. He needs a wife for public appearances, social events, and to satisfy certain business partners who view unmarried men as untrustworthy. It would be a contractual arrangement. 1 year. You would live in his residence, appear at designated functions, and play the role of a devoted spouse. In return, all your debts will be cleared, your grandmother will receive the best medical care available, and at the end of the year, you'll receive $5 million. Jennifer's brain short-circuited. $5 million to pretend to be married to a man who doesn't speak. Jae-won's eyes narrowed slightly. He typed again. I don't speak. I'm not deaf or stupid. I understand everything. And I have my reasons for my silence. What reasons? Jennifer asked before her brain could stop her mouth. The temperature in the room dropped 20 degrees. Jae-won's expression went from cold to absolutely glacial. He stood, buttoned his ruined jacket, and walked toward her with slow, deliberate steps. He stopped close enough that she could smell his cologne, something expensive and woodsy. He was so close she had to tilt her head back to meet his eyes. He raised his hand and she flinched, but he didn't strike her. Instead, he gently touched his own throat, then typed on his phone with one hand. Some silence is chosen. Some is survival. Don't ask me again. There was so much pain in those words, hidden beneath the ice, that Jennifer felt her heart crack a little. She was a sucker for broken things. Always had been. That's why she had 3 stray dogs, for cats, and a parrot with anxiety at home. Okay, she heard herself say. I'll do it. Everyone in the room looked shocked, including Jae-won. He studied her face, searching for something. Then he nodded and extended his hand. She took it. His hand was warm, strong, and surprisingly gentle. They shook once, and Jennifer Baptiste sealed her fate. The next 72 hours were a blur. Contracts were signed, non-disclosure agreements were executed, and Jennifer's entire life was packed into boxes and moved to Jae-won's estate in Maryville, an area where houses were actually mansions and neighbors were either diplomats or drug lords, sometimes both. The estate was ridiculous. 8 bedrooms, 10 bathrooms, an infinity pool, a garden that required a full-time staff, and security that could rival a military installation. Jennifer was given the bedroom next to Jae-won's master suite, connected by a door that he immediately showed her how to lock from her side. He was a silent gentleman, she'd give him that. Her grandmother, Mama D, was moved to a private medical facility that looked more like a 5-star hotel than a hospital. When Jennifer visited her and explained she'd gotten married suddenly, Mama D had looked at her with knowing eyes. Baby girl, what kind of trouble you get yourself into? The kind that pays your medical bills and comes with a hot husband who doesn't talk back, Jennifer joked, but Mama D didn't laugh. Just be careful. Money like that always comes with strings. And strings can become chains real quick. Jennifer thought about those words as she prepared for her first public appearance as Mrs. Kong. It was a charity gala, full of Trinidad's elite and several international businesspeople. She wore a designer dress that cost more than her old apartment, had her makeup done by a professional, and felt like a complete fraud. Jae-won appeared at her door in a tuxedo, looking like he'd stepped out of a magazine. He extended his arm silently. She took it, and they descended the stairs together like they'd done this 1,000 times. In the car, Jennifer couldn't stand the silence. So, do we have a story? How did we meet? How long have we been dating? Do we have cute couple nicknames? You probably hate nicknames. You seem like you'd hate nicknames. I could call you Jay. Or 1-1. Actually, 1-1 sounds like a dog's name. Definitely not 1-1. Jae-won pulled out his phone and typed. We met at a business function. It was love at first sight. We'd been secretly dating for 6 months and married quickly because we couldn't stand to be apart. Keep it simple. Love at first sight? With you? No offense, but you're kind of terrifying. He looked at her, and there was something almost playful in his eyes. He typed, you're not afraid of me. I'm absolutely afraid of you, Jennifer corrected. I'm just bad at showing it. My mouth doesn't have a fear setting, only a nervous rambling setting. This time she definitely saw it. The tiniest quirk of his lips. The smallest hint of a smile. It vanished so quickly she might have imagined it, but it felt like a victory. The gala was exactly as boring as she'd expected. Rich people eating expensive food, drinking expensive wine, and talking about expensive things. Jennifer smiled, played her role, and held on to Jae-won's arm like a devoted wife. He was the perfect fake husband, attentive without being clingy, protective without being possessive. Several times, when men tried to talk business with him, he'd simply show them his phone with pre-typed responses or have his assistant, the Ice Queen woman named Ms. Park, speak for him. Everything was going perfectly until a man with a Russian accent and a scar across his cheek approached them. Kang Jae-won. I heard rumors you'd gotten married. I didn't believe them. The man's eyes raked over Jennifer in a way that made her skin crawl. Interesting choice. I didn't know you liked them so exotic. Jennifer felt Jae-won go absolutely rigid beside her. The air around them became heavy with danger. Jae-won's hand moved to his pocket, but Jennifer spoke before he could pull out his phone. Exotic? Honey, I think you mean gorgeous, intelligent, and way out of your league. She smiled sweetly, with all her teeth. And I didn't know they let people who peaked in the 80s into events like this, but here you are, rocking that scar like it's a personality trait. How brave. The Russian's face turned red. Several people nearby stopped talking to watch. Miss Park looked like she wanted to drag Jennifer away by her hair. But Jae-won did something unexpected. His shoulders shook slightly. His hand came up to cover his mouth. His eyes crinkled at the corners. He was laughing. Silently, but definitely laughing. The Russian looked between them, clearly not used to being mocked. You have no idea who I am. A man with poor manners and worse cologne? Jennifer suggested. Listen, sir, this is a charity event. We're here to help people, not stroke the egos of men who think intimidation is a substitute for personality. So why don't you go find someone else to bother while my husband and I enjoy our evening? She turned away, pulling a still silently laughing Jae-won with her. As soon as they were out of earshot, Miss Park appeared at their side, her face pale. Mrs. Kong, do you have any idea what you just did? That was Dmitry Volkov. He runs the Russian operations in the Southern Caribbean. He's Mr. Kang's main competitor and a very dangerous man. He was rude, Jennifer said simply. I don't care how dangerous he is. Nobody talks about my husband like that. Jae-won's hand squeezed hers gently. When she looked at him, his eyes were warm, proud even. He typed on his phone and showed it to Miss Park. She stays by my side for the rest of the night. And increase security. Volkov doesn't handle humiliation well. The rest of the evening passed without incident, but Jennifer noticed the increased number of large men in suits surrounding them. When they finally returned to the estate, she was exhausted. She kicked off her heels in the foyer and groaned. How do people do this regularly? My feet are screaming. My face hurts from smiling. And I'm pretty sure I ate something with caviar, which is just fancy fish eggs, and that feels weird. Jae-won removed his jacket and bow tie, and gestured for her to follow him. He led her to the kitchen, a massive space with marble countertops and appliances that looked like they belonged on a spaceship. He opened the refrigerator and pulled out containers, setting them on the counter. Jennifer watched in fascination as the silent mafia boss heated up polo, stewed chicken, and macaroni pie, clearly leftovers from what the household cook had made. He plated the food beautifully, poured her a glass of wine, and gestured to the breakfast bar. "You cook?" Jennifer asked, settling onto a stool. "Or heat up food? Either way, I'm impressed. And starving. That fancy food was tiny. Like, why even bother? Just give me one good meal instead of 12 tiny confusing ones." Jae-won sat across from her with his own plate. He didn't eat immediately, just watched her take her first bite. When she moaned in appreciation, he finally started eating, and she could swear she saw the hint of a smile again. They ate in comfortable silence, which was new for Jennifer. She usually filled every quiet moment with chatter, but there was something peaceful about sitting with him. He had a way of making silence feel intentional rather than awkward. After dinner, he walked her to her room. At the door, he pulled out his phone. "You did well tonight. Thank you for defending me." "Of course," Jennifer said. "We're supposed to be married. That's what spouses do, right? Have each other's backs." He looked at her for a long moment, something unreadable in his dark eyes. Then he reached out and gently touched her cheek, just a brief brush of his fingers, before nodding goodnight and walking to his own room. Jennifer touched her cheek where his fingers had been and wondered what she'd gotten herself into. If you're loving this story so far, don't forget to like this video and share it with someone who loves intense romance. And stick around because things are about to get even more complicated for Jennifer and Jae-won. The first month of marriage was an adjustment. Jennifer learned Jae-won's routines, his silent ways of communicating, the small gestures that meant everything. A hand on her lower back meant danger was near. A slight head tilt meant he was amused. The way he'd bring her coffee in the morning, exactly how she liked it, meant he was paying attention to every detail of her life. She also learned about his business, or at least the parts Ms. Park deemed safe for her to know. The Kong Corporation had legitimate interests in shipping, real estate, and tech, but everyone knew the real money came from less legal ventures. Jae-won controlled most of the high-end smuggling operations in the Caribbean, had connections to cartels in South America, and apparently had enough dirt on government officials to topple administrations. Despite all of that, Jennifer found herself liking him. He was kind in quiet ways. He never raised a hand to her, never even raised his voice because he had no voice to raise. When she talked, which was constantly, he listened with full attention. When she showed him videos on her phone of her rescue animals, he watched every single one and then arranged for them all to be brought to the estate, complete with a veterinarian on call. "You didn't have to do this," Jennifer said, watching her dogs run around the massive garden like they'd won the lottery. Jae-won typed, "You missed them. You're less talkative when you're sad. I don't like when you're quiet." Her heart did a weird flip. "You like when I talk. Most people tell me to shut up. Most people are idiots." He paused, then added, "Your voice is nice." That was the moment Jennifer realized she was in trouble. Real trouble. The kind that had nothing to do with mafia business and everything to do with the way her heart raced when he was near. The second month brought danger. Dmitry Volkov hadn't forgotten the humiliation at the gala. A shipment of Jae-won's was intercepted. One of his warehouses was burned down. The attacks were strategic, designed to provoke a response. Jennifer knew something was wrong when Jae-won came home with blood on his shirt. Not his blood, thankfully, but blood nonetheless. She found him in his study, staring out the window with that perfectly blank expression he wore when he was actually feeling everything. "Are you okay?" she asked softly. He didn't turn around. Didn't acknowledge her. She should have left, given him space, but Jennifer had never been good at should. She walked up behind him and did something bold. She hugged him from behind, wrapping her arms around his waist and pressing her cheek against his back. Jae-won went absolutely still. For a moment, she thought she'd made a terrible mistake. Then, slowly, his hands came up to cover hers. He held her hands against his chest, and she could feel his heartbeat, racing fast despite his calm exterior. They stood like that for a long time. No words, no phones, just presence. When he finally turned around, his eyes were softer than she'd ever seen them. He cupped her face in both hands, searching her expression for something. Then he leaned down and kissed her forehead, soft and lingering, before stepping back and leaving the room. Jennifer stood there, touching her forehead, her heart absolutely racing. This wasn't supposed to happen. This was a business arrangement. A one-year contract. She wasn't supposed to fall for the silent mafia boss who brought her coffee and made her laugh and kissed her forehead like she was something precious. But she was falling anyway. The third month, everything changed. Jennifer was shopping in Port of Spain with 2 bodyguards when a car pulled up beside them. She barely had time to register the danger before someone grabbed her, a cloth covered her mouth and nose, and the world went dark. She woke up in a warehouse, tied to a chair, with a pounding headache and Dmitry Volkov standing in front of her. "Good, you're awake," he said in that accented voice. "I was beginning to worry I'd used too much chloroform." "You know, there are better ways to get a woman's attention," Jennifer said, her mouth running before her brain could stop it. "Flowers, chocolate, maybe a nice dinner. Kidnapping is really more of a red flag." Volkov backhanded her across the face. Pain exploded in her cheek, and she tasted blood. "You have a smart mouth. Let's see if you're still joking when I send pieces of you to your husband." "Wow, straight to dismemberment. You really don't know how to build suspense, do you? This is why Russian novels are so long. You guys have no concept of pacing." He hit her again, harder. This time, her vision blurred. Through the haze, she heard him talking. "Kang Jae-won thinks he's untouchable. Silent and superior. But everyone has a weakness. And apparently, his weakness is a loud-mouthed black woman with no sense of self-preservation." Volkov pulled out his phone. "Let's call him, shall we?" "Oh wait, he doesn't take calls. He doesn't speak. How convenient." He sent a text instead, probably with a photo of Jennifer tied up and bleeding. Then they waited. It took 17 minutes. Jennifer counted every single one, distracting herself from the pain by analyzing the warehouse's structure, looking for exits, and mentally cataloging every crime show she'd ever watched. When the warehouse door exploded inward, she almost cried with relief. Jae-won walked in like an avenging angel, dressed in all black, flanked by a dozen armed men. But it was his face that terrified her. She'd never seen such pure rage. His eyes were wild, feral, dangerous in a way that made Volkov's violence look like child's play. "Kong. Welcome." Volkov pressed a gun to Jennifer's head. "Let's negotiate. Your operations in the southern region for your wife's life." Jae-won held up his phone. The message was simple, no. Jennifer's heart sank until she saw his face. He was looking directly at her, and his eyes were saying something completely different. "Trust me." She nodded, just slightly. Everything happened at once. The lights went out. Jennifer threw herself sideways, chair and all. Gunfire erupted. Someone cut her bonds in the darkness. Strong hands pulled her up, and she knew those hands, knew the way they held her carefully even in the midst of chaos. Jae-won pushed her behind him, shielding her with his body as his men secured the warehouse. When the lights came back on, Volkov was on his knees, bleeding from a shoulder wound, surrounded by Jae-won's men. "You're making a mistake," Volkov gasped. "Kill me, and the Russians will come for you with everything they have." Jae-won pulled out his phone, typed something, and showed it to Volkov. Whatever it said made the Russian's face go white. "That's not possible. Those files are encrypted." Jae-won typed again, showed the message to Ms. Park, who had appeared from somewhere. She smiled coldly. "Mr. Kong says he's had access to your organization's financial records and communication logs for the past 3 years. He has evidence of your skimming money from your bosses in Moscow, selling their secrets to the Chinese, and plotting to take over their operations. He's already sent this information to the appropriate people. You'll be lucky if they kill you quickly." Volkov lunged at Jae-won, but he was too slow, too injured. Jae-won sidestepped easily and delivered a single, brutal punch that dropped the Russian like a stone. Then he turned to Jennifer, and the rage melted into concern. He gently touched her bleeding lip, her bruised cheek, and something happened. His face contorted in pain, in fury, in something deeper. His mouth opened. She could see him struggling, fighting with himself. The sound was rough, broken, barely audible. "I'm sorry." Jennifer's eyes went wide. "Did you just?" But he was already shaking his head, pressing his fingers to his lips like he could take the words back. He looked terrified, vulnerable in a way she'd never seen. "Jae-won," she whispered. "It's okay. It's okay to speak." He shook his head violently and pulled out his phone. "Not here. Not now. We need to leave." The trip back to the estate was silent, but it was a different kind of silence. Jae-won held her hand the entire way, his thumb rubbing gentle circles on her skin. Every few minutes, he'd look at her injuries and his jaw would clench. At home, he personally tended to her wounds, his touches feather-light, his eyes full of guilt. When he was done, he tried to leave, but Jennifer caught his hand. "Stay. Please." He hesitated, then nodded. He sat beside her on the bed, and she leaned against him, exhausted and aching and emotionally overwhelmed. "Thank you for saving me," she whispered. He pulled out his phone. "Thank you for trusting me. When I saw you hurt, He didn't finish typing. Instead, he set the phone aside and pulled her closer, wrapping his arms around her like he was afraid she'd disappear. That night, Jennifer slept in Jaewon's bed, held safe in his arms, and realized that somewhere along the way, this had stopped being fake. The 4th month brought revelations. Ms. Park, perhaps feeling guilty about the kidnapping happening on her watch, told Jennifer the story everyone else knew but nobody spoke about. 20 years ago, Jaewon had been 12 years old and learning the family business from his father. They'd been in Korea, meeting with a rival organization to negotiate peace. But it was a trap. Jaewon watched his father and 2 older brothers get executed, watched his mother get killed when she tried to protect him. The rival boss had grabbed young Jaewon and told him, "Scream. Beg. Give me a reason to let you live." But Jaewon hadn't made a sound. Even as they beat him, even as they tortured him, even as they left him for dead in a warehouse, he stayed silent. Silence became survival. Silence became armor. His uncle had found him 3 days later and brought him to Trinidad, far from Korea and the politics that had killed his family. Jaewon recovered physically, but he never spoke again. His uncle built the Kong Corporation into what it was today, and when he died, Jaewon took over at 21. 11 years of running a criminal empire in complete silence, communicating only through text and action, feared and respected and utterly alone. Until a talkative event planner spilled food on him and refused to be intimidated by his silence. Jennifer cried when Miss Park finished the story. She went to Jaewon's study and found him working, as always. He looked up when she entered, and his expression shifted to concern when he saw her tears. "Why didn't you tell me?" she asked. He knew immediately what she meant. He set down his tablet and gestured for her to come closer. When she did, he wiped her tears and typed slowly. "Some pain is too deep for words. Even if I could speak, I don't know if I could explain. You spoke. At the warehouse. You said you were sorry. I know. It shocked me too. I haven't spoken in 20 years. But seeing you hurt, knowing it was my fault you were in danger, something broke inside me. Or maybe something healed. It wasn't your fault. You're in my world because of me. Every danger you face is because you're my wife." "Fake wife," Jennifer corrected, though the words felt hollow. Jaewon looked at her with such intensity that she forgot how to breathe. He typed, "Is that what you still think this is? Fake? I don't know what to think. This was supposed to be business. A contract. 1 year and then we go our separate ways. And if I don't want to go separate ways?" Jennifer's heart stopped. "What are you saying?" Instead of typing, Jaewon stood and cupped her face in his hands. He leaned down, giving her every chance to pull away, and when she didn't, he kissed her. It was soft and sweet and desperate all at once, 20 years of silence and loneliness poured into a single kiss. When they finally broke apart, Jennifer was crying again, but for different reasons. "I love you," she whispered. "I know I'm not supposed to. I know this wasn't part of the deal. But I love you." Jaewon pressed his forehead against hers, his eyes closed. She could feel him struggling, fighting with himself. His mouth opened. Closed. Opened again. His voice was rough, unpracticed, broken. "I love you, too." The words were halting, painful, barely more than a whisper. But they were words. Real words. Spoken out loud. Jennifer kissed him again, and this time, neither of them held back. 20 years of silence, 4 months of pretending, all of it dissolved into truth. They made love slowly, carefully, Jaewon speaking with his body since words were still so hard, showing her with every touch how much she meant to him. Afterward, lying tangled together, Jennifer traced patterns on his chest. "You don't have to speak if it's too hard," she said softly. "I fell in love with you silent. I'll love you the same either way." Jaewon kissed her forehead, then picked up his phone. "You make me want to try. You make me want to be more than my trauma." The 5th month brought challenges from an unexpected source. Jaewon's cousin, Kang Min-jun, arrived from Korea with plans to absorb the Caribbean operations back into the main family business. He was smooth, handsome, and he spoke perfectly, everything Jaewon wasn't. Cousin, Min-jun said at a tense family dinner, speaking Korean while Ms. Park translated. "Uncle built something impressive here, and you've maintained it admirably. But don't you think it's time to come home? To speak with the main family?" "Oh, wait. You can't speak." Jennifer's fork clattered against her plate. "Excuse me? I'm just saying, how can he run operations when he can't even have a conversation? When I have to hear everything secondhand through assistants? He runs operations just fine. Better than fine. Everyone respects him. They fear him," Min-jun corrected. "That's not the same thing. Fear fades. Respect built on communication lasts. He turned to Jae-won. Sign over the Caribbean territory. I'll make sure you're compensated. You can retire, enjoy your unexpected marriage, live quietly. Jae-won's expression was carved from stone. He pulled out his phone and typed a single word, showing it to Min-jun. No. Be reasonable. Jae-won typed again, leave my house. The Cold War between the cousins escalated over the next few weeks. Min-jun tried to poach Jae-won's people, undercut his deals, spread rumors that he was unfit to lead. Some of the younger members of the organization, ones who didn't remember Jae-won's ruthless rise to power, started questioning his leadership. It all came to a head at a meeting of the territory's major players. Representatives from the various criminal organizations that worked with or against the Kong Corporation gathered in a neutral location, an old plantation house converted into a conference center. Min-jun called for a vote of no confidence. My cousin is a relic, he said smoothly. A silent ghost holding on to power through fear and violence. The organization needs a leader who can negotiate, communicate, adapt to the modern world. Someone who can speak. Jennifer watched Jae-won, saw the tension in his shoulders. She knew this was killing him, this public challenge. He pulled out his tablet, prepared to type his defense, but his hands were shaking slightly. She couldn't stand it. She stood up. May I say something? Min-jun smiled condescendingly. This is business, Mrs. Kong. Perhaps you should. Sit down and let the men talk. Jennifer finished. Yeah, I've heard that before. Here's the thing. I've spent 5 months married to Jae-won. I've seen how he runs his organization. You want to talk about communication? He communicates more in silence than most people do with 1,000 words. You want to talk about leadership? His people are loyal not because they fear him, but because he's fair. He protects his own. He doesn't waste time with empty promises or smooth talk. When he makes a commitment, he keeps it. She walked around the table, building momentum. You think being silent makes him weak? I've watched him negotiate deals with a tablet and a death stare that would make grown men weep. I've seen him coordinate complex operations with nothing but hand signals and strategic planning. His silence isn't a weakness. It's a choice. It's control. And frankly, in a world full of men who talk too much and say too little, I'll take the silent man who means every single gesture over the smooth talker any day. Min-jun's smile faded. This is highly irregular. She's not even. Not even what? Not even part of the organization? I'm his wife. That makes me exactly part of this. And I'm telling you right now, you try to take what's his, and you'll find out that I'm not just talkative. I'm vindictive. Several of the older members chuckled. One of them, a scarred man who ran the arms dealing side of things, spoke up. The girl has a point. Jae-won has been fair and consistent. Profits are up. Territory is secure. Why fix what isn't broken? Another nodded. Min-jun promises modernization, but I remember him from Korea. He's ambitious. Men who are too ambitious make risky decisions. The tide turned. When the vote was called, Min-jun lost decisively. He left Trinidad the next day, furious and humiliated. That night, Jae-won took Jennifer to the balcony of their bedroom, overlooking the city lights. He held her close, and then, slowly, in that rough, unpracticed voice, he spoke. Thank you. For fighting for me. Each word was a struggle, but he pushed through. Jennifer turned in his arms, cupping his face. Always. That's what love means. We fight for each other. I want this real. He touched the wedding ring on her finger, the one that had been just a prop. Not contract. Real marriage. Real life. You, me, forever. Are you proposing to your own wife? Jennifer asked, laughing through tears. Yes. The word came easier this time. Marry me. Again. Real. Yes. Yes, absolutely yes. He kissed her then, deep and passionate, and Jennifer felt like her heart might burst from happiness. The 6th month brought an actual wedding. Not the quick courthouse signing they'd done for the contract, but a real celebration. Jennifer wore a dress that combined traditional African and Korean elements, a gorgeous blend of cultures. Mama D was there, healthy and happy, crying from the front row. Jae-won's people filled the other seats, and for once, the dangerous criminals looked like regular wedding guests, smiling and celebrating. When it came time for vows, everyone held their breath. Jae-won stood at the altar, holding Jennifer's hands, and spoke. His voice was getting stronger with practice, though still quiet, still rough around the edges. Jennifer Baptiste. You came into my life like a hurricane. Loud, chaotic, impossible to ignore. He paused, gathering strength. For 20 years. I was silent. Safe in silence. Then you made me want to speak. Want to laugh. Want to live. His eyes were bright with emotion. You saved me. I love you. I will protect you. Cherish you. For all my days. There wasn't a dry eye in the place. When Jennifer said her vows, her voice strong and sure, promising to love him in silence or in speech, in danger or in peace, in this life and whatever came next, Jae-won smiled. A real, full, genuine smile. And then he laughed. It started as a quiet sound, rusty from disuse, but it grew. He laughed with joy, with relief, with the pure happiness of a man who'd finally found his voice and his home. The crowd erupted in applause. The final months of that year were the happiest of Jennifer's life. Jae-won spoke more, though never much. He was careful with words, treating them like precious things, which made every "I love you" mean everything. They ran the organization together, Jennifer's quick thinking and social skills complementing his strategic mind and quiet authority. They were a team, in business and in life. She got pregnant in month 9, a surprise that left them both shocked and thrilled. Jae-won cried when she told him, actual tears streaming down his face as he held her and whispered, "Thank you," over and over. When their daughter was born, a beautiful girl with Jennifer's warm brown skin and Jae-won's dark eyes, he held her and spoke clearly for the first time, his voice full of wonder. "Hello, little one. I'm your father. I love you so much. I promise I'll always protect you. And I promise you'll never know the silence I knew. You'll grow up with love and laughter and all the words I couldn't say for so long." The baby grabbed his finger, and Jae-won laughed, that wonderful sound that still surprised Jennifer every time she heard it. They named her Hope. Because that's what Jennifer had given Jae-won. Hope that he could be more than his trauma. Hope that silence could break. Hope that love could heal even the deepest wounds. Years later, when Hope asked how Mommy and Daddy met, Jennifer would tell her the story. About a clumsy event planner and spilled food. About a contract marriage and fake smiles. About danger and darkness and finding love in the most unexpected place. And Jae-won would add, in his quiet voice that his girls loved so much, "Your mother taught me to speak. To laugh. To live. She saved me." "We saved each other," Jennifer would correct, kissing him softly. Hope would giggle and declare it the best love story ever, and her parents would agree, because it was. Not because it was easy or simple or safe, but because it was real. Hard won. Fought for. Chosen every single day. The Korean Mafia CEO who never spoke for 20 years found his voice because a talkative black girl refused to let him hide in silence. And together, they built something beautiful from the broken pieces of their pasts. A love that was loud and quiet. Fierce and gentle. Exactly what they both needed. That's the thing about real love. It doesn't fix you. But it gives you a reason to fix yourself. It doesn't erase the past. But it makes the future worth fighting for. And sometimes, the person you least expect becomes the home you've been searching for all along. In the dangerous world of the Caribbean underground, Kang Jae-won and Jennifer Baptiste became legends. Not for their power or their ruthlessness, but for their love story. The proof that even in darkness, light can break through. That silence can become song. That broken people can make each other whole. And every morning, when Jae-won brought Jennifer her coffee exactly how she liked it, and she kissed him and told him good morning in that bright, beautiful voice of hers, he smiled. Because he'd spent 20 years in silence, and now his life was full of the most beautiful sound in the world. The sound of love. Of laughter. Of home. I hope you absolutely loved this story of Jennifer and Jae-won as much as I loved bringing it to you. If this gave you all the feels, smash that like button and drop a comment telling me what your favorite part was. Would you marry a silent mafia boss? Let me know. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you never miss these intense romance stories. Share this with your friends who love dark romance and strong couples who fight for their love. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next story. Until then.